But all of us in this room, all four of us, have said on the record here that we think that Kenny Pickett should start if he's cleared. I think that that's a controversial opinion. I do. I think it's certainly an argument waiting to happen. But I think we all have similar rationale as well. Ron, you want to express your rationale? Why you think if they get word that Pickett's ready to play, medically cleared, why you think Tomlin should go with him?
I just think he's the quarterback of the future. And they made the choice to go to him in that Jets game. I don't think he played well at all yesterday, except on the first drive. He was pretty good. I'm going back to him just for that reason. Quarterback of the future. I'm not yanking him in, yanking him out. I don't know how Trubisky will play again. Will he play as good as he did in the second half the other day? I'm not so sure of that. I'm going back to Pickett, but I'll say it again. If I was betting right now, I'm going to bet they don't play him because of the concussion issue. And Tua was cleared to play for Miami yesterday, and they held him out another game. He will be back for the Steelers Sunday night. I just think they'll be cautious with Pickett.
So what if they simply win with Trubisky and he's just okay? Do you have to come back with him still because you're winning now, like a goalie who wins a game?
Again, I got to see it with my eyes. I mean, if their defense just lights up Tua and, Trubisky's just sort of along for the ride, maybe I go back to Pickett. But, I think he's going to have to play better than just okay if they're going to win the game. And if they win the game, I'm likely to stay with them.
Well, it would take more than that. For me, if he plays next week and he's not the reason they win, but he's the quarterback, then I would go back to Pickett the next week. But if he plays really well, then these games are important for them. They got one more before a bye week. They can kind of reassess themselves at that bye week, but I would stick with Trubisky. However, I think that Pickett will not play this week. I think that's very obvious at this point, given the way the NFL has handled concussions. So I do think Trubisky will get another start. There will be no controversy. The controversy begins with how he plays.
With how he plays.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So even though, and my rationale is similar to that for why I would go with Pickett if he was cleared, I want him to grow up with the young guys on this offense. And he is the quarterback of the future.
That's what Rod Woodson told us a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Let him go through the growing pains together.
And yet we all will abandon our rationale within a week. So I think we could easily be questioned on that. If that's our rationale and all it takes is Mitch Trubisky maybe just to win a game and to play pretty well, we're all willing to abandon our rationale real quickly in favor of a win, aren't we?
Well, you stay with a hot hand. I think that's reasonable.
Well, then why don't you stay with Trubisky's hot hand from yesterday?
Because I don't know that it's going to carry over for a quarter and a half, but if he does it for 5.5 quarters, I'd like his chances a little more of it carrying over. That's just me.
Maybe this is just a game that he needed to come in and say, you know what, I got nothing to lose. I'm in here. We're going to try to sling this ball.
Already lost my job.
Yeah, and so I'll just play the way I think I can play. I'll make my own reads when I have to, and I'll run the ball when I need to. And, again, maybe he should have done that at the beginning of the season. He might not have lost his job. Moving forward, if this kind of continues, then I think you ride it for a little bit. I don't think there's any harm, no foul with that.
Maybe. Is there any harm in jerking your first-round quarterback in? And what about after that? Would you do it again if Pickett faltered? Would you pull him back out, or is Pickett then your guy if you put him back in?
I've said Pickett is my guy moving forward here, but define moving forward to me. If that means immediately now, regardless of the outcome, that wins don't matter, that losses don't matter, fine. But if they do matter, and if you're in this logjam of teams and you believe you can get in somehow, some way, then you got to go with who you find best suited at that time.
Right. So it sounds like you would definitely be willing to go back and forth, depending on who gives you the best chance to win a game.
I would say, again, it would take a big effort by Trubisky this week to make him my starter the following week in Philadelphia. If he shows me that and he's outstanding, I don't know that you would be benefiting the rest of your team if you just decided to take him out because Kenny Pickett's my starter moving forward. This is the present. They're not worried about the future. At least a lot of those guys are.
If I'm playing Pickett, I'm sticking with him. Unless he's just totally abysmal, I'm going to stick with him. If there's some losses along the way, there'll be losses along.
But this is if Trubisky plays well next week,
I said if I'm going back to Pickett, I'm sticking with him. But I definitely would consider staying with Trubisky if he plays well and they win this.
It's a tricky situation. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's an extremely
How about
tricky
this scenario?
situation.
This may never happen, but since we just talk about these hypotheticals, why not this? How about if Trubisky plays well next week and he plays well the week after? The NFL trade deadline comes up. Kenny Pickett's healthy. He's ready to play, and somebody is desperate for a quarterback, and they make you an offer for him.
I would absolutely consider it.
And it might be a good offer.
Wait,
For
what?
Trubisky, I'm talking about.
If he plays well against
They
Miami.
win these next
Just say
2
him,
games.
and he's in there and he's playing really well, and they go
then
to
you
a
said
bu-
you'd keep playing him.
I'm saying I'm
If
throwing out
somebody
a
offered
possibility. If
something
someone
for
got
him.
desperate, 2 of their quarterbacks get knocked out, and they don't have Bailey Zappi waiting in the wings, and they need a quarterback, a contending team, and they say, you know what, we want him. What it would take to get him? Would you do it? Is what I'm trying to say.
No, not at that point.
Okay.
Because at
I
that
just
point,
wanted to ask you
you've
'cause
probably won 2 more games, right?
Right.
And then you're 4-4.
Right.
So at the very least, I'd want him to be Pickett's backup.
Okay. So you're putting an emphasis on wins and losses as this season moves forward then.
I think Pickett gives me a better chance to win, which is why I put him in the first place.
Okay.
It's an
I'm just
interesting-
throwing them.
it's
I'm
an
just throwing them
interesting,
out.
challenging
I
situation.
would love to see these kinds
That
of
would
things
be
play out.
something if you played Trubisky twice in a row, won 2 games in a row, and then traded him.
I'm just bringing it up as a possibility because when this trade we saw a trade just now with Robbie Anderson. There, trades could be made.
Of
You
course
have
they
Mason
could.
Rudolph, who you like back there too. They hadn't shied away from.
Don't tell Joe he likes him.
Well, I'm just saying
Who?
he's there. He's
Mason.
if you had an opportunity to get a pick that you never
You
saw
two
coming.
both just said.
I'm
you
not
would,
saying
you would,
I do it.
you
I'm
both
asking
just said
you.
you would keep playing Trubisky if he keeps winning. Or
Yeah,
if he keeps playing well.
right.
Now you're saying you
No, I'm not
you'd
saying
listen
anything.
to a trade
I'm
if
saying
he wins you
what
2
would
games
you
in a
do?
row.
I'd
What
listen
would
to
you
him for
do
a
if
Then
change.
why
somebody
play
called
him?
you?
If you're willing to trade a
No,
guy,
only because if you get something really good for him, I think that's
so you
what
play
you're
him
gonna
2 in a row, win 2 in a row, and trade him?
do. If I got like a second-round draft choice or something for him, yeah, I would. I don't know that I will get that because Pickett is my guy of the future. We keep saying that. I don't think that would necessarily happen. He brought up a hypothetical. What if you get something real good for Trubisky? I absolutely would think about it.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
Is that
Why
you would,
would it-
you would play it? You're both saying
I'm
you would
just-
play the guy 2 weeks in a row. You win 2 games in a
I
row
only
with him. You
brought it
bench
up-
your first
I
round
only
draft
bought
pick,
it because
and then
you
trade
have a
him before
first
the
round
third
pick.
game,
Because you have a first round
who you
pick.
don't know is good yet.
Okay. You hope. I mean, you gave 20th overall pick. You better give him every opportunity. You're not going to sit him. So if you keep Trubisky, he plays well the rest of the year based on your logic. Pickett's never going to get back in, right? Even though he's a first round back, because you don't know how good he's going to be.
What? I said I
I'm
would
just-
go back to Pickett even if Trubisky plays well in Miami.
Okay, then why would you not think about a trade possibility? If someone came with you with an offer you never saw coming.
Only if it's a great offer. That's all.
That's all I'm saying.
We're
Saying someone's desperate enough to say to you.
That would be one hell of a story if you went to Trubisky 2 weeks in a row. He won you 2 games and you traded him.
You just
You're
said
sitting
you're
at
riding
4-4.
Pickett. You just said you're
I
riding
am
Pickett.
riding Pickett.
Okay, well, if you are, then he's the quarterback. So therefore, Mitch
I
is the
think it makes
backup.
more sense for me to say yes to this than you two because you just said you'd go to Trubisky and keep winning. If you keep winning, you keep winning and
I'm
ride
only-
the hot
I only-
hand.
I
He's
should never
missing the
brought it
point
up. I just
totally.
brought it up as a possibility.
And
That's
only
it.
if it's a great offer, Joe.
No, I
That's
get
all.
it. I get it, Ron.
That's
But
it.
you've already said you'd go to Trubisky for the
Yes.
hot hand, trying to
Uh-huh.
make the playoffs at 4-4,
But you talked
and then
about
suddenly
a
up and
juicy
trade him.
situation that could happen. How about if I'm just bringing up a possibility? How about if how about if some team loses 2 quarterbacks and they're a good team and they need somebody?
Folsey, you want to weigh in on this one?
This is why it doesn't make any sense to go with the hot hand in Mitch Trubisky. Because at the end of the day, you're willing to trade him, and he's not part of your future.
I didn't say they're willing to trade him. I'm saying that if
No, he
I'm
said
only-
you are, not them. You'd be willing to trade him.
You would.
I brought up the possibility. That's all I'm bringing up. I wanted to see what you think. That's all.
Well, what do
You
you
know,
think?
we've talked about trading one of those quarterbacks when Mason ended up number 3. Let's trade him. Try to get a 5th-round
Yeah.
pick. Trubisky loses his job.
Yeah.
Let's trade him. Try to get a good pick for him.
Definitely.
That's all we're saying.
Way different situation. He's your starting quarterback, and you've won 3 games in a row, and you up and trade him. Way different
Only
than
if
Mason or Mitch as a
only if
backup.
it's something that I really like.
But it's a far different situation than the ones you mentioned.
Okay.
Right? Is it not?
I mean, you don't want to make the playoffs, so what difference does it make?
I didn't
You'd
say
rather-
I didn't want to make the
You
playoffs.
just said, so if they get into the playoffs, they'll lose by 40 points,
Right.
whether it's Trubisky or Pickett, probably.
Right.
So why would you want to make the playoffs? Why wouldn't you want to do what would set you up for the future?
I'm talking about what
better?
you want to do.
I get that. I'm just saying.
Right.
Pickett's their guy. Pickett will be their starting quarterback on opening day.
Except if Mitch
week.
plays good in Miami, then you're willing to ride him as long as he's hot.
Right now.
Right. Except
now.
if you trade him.
Except if I trade him.
This is
Except
where
Joe, I don't think there's anything that's confusing about that. You wouldn't trade him for a second-round draft
If you
choice?
win 3 games in a row,
and you're 4
you
and 4,
rise
but yet
to first
Pickett
place
is
in
your
the
guy.
AFC
Pickett
North.
is your guy.
You rise to first place in the AFC North, and you're willing to go with Trubisky the rest of the season if he stays hot, and you up and trade him. That wouldn't be a strange story.
Not to me, it wouldn't. If somebody's going to give you a second-round pick.
Okay. But you're saying you're playing for this season, too.
But I don't think somebody would give him a second-round pick necessarily.
What does the pick matter if you're playing for this season?
Because Pickett's your guy of the future,
Right.
and you
You
think
have a
Pickett gives him a
quarterback.
better chance anyway.
You guys
Right
are
now,
living in
yeah.
both
Trubisky.
worlds.
Okay. 2 games going to change your mind?
It did
One
yours.
game?
One game will change yours. You're willing to go to Trubisky and let him play the rest of the year if he stays hot.
Nobody
say the
said
rest
rest
of the year.
of the year.
Nobody said that.
You-
I
I
said
will
So
say-
if he keeps playing well,
Well, if he keeps playing well and they keep winning, sure.
Ballsy.
See, I think this is playing in both worlds where you want wins now, but you also want to go to the future. I don't know if that's the best case scenario here. I don't know if you're sticking with Trubisky because he's winning games, yet you're willing to trade him because it's not really about winning games.
Coltsy,
You wanna
his
go back to
stock
Pickett
price
right
goes
away,
up.
right?
His
Yeah,
stock
I'm
is at a
talking to
level
Matt.
that
He
you
wants to
hadn't
go to
seen
Pickett.
possible.
No matter
When
what
he's cleared-
Trubisky does this week, you still want to go to
Yes, when he's cleared
to
because
Pickett.
he's
Okay,
the
that's
future
a
quarterback.
viewpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think you can play to win games now and then say, but if a good deal comes along, we're trading
All
the
right,
guy
what
that's
about
winning
this?
us games.
What about Pickett goes in and he's okay and everything? Trubisky takes a seat on the bench and someone then calls you also for a trade of Mitch Trubisky. He's
Well,
your
I'm sure
backup.
they'd say that's
Yeah.
different, right?
How's that different?
How is it not different?
Because he's not playing then versus playing.
But
Bob.
you saw potentially what he did in this last game. And if you're desperate teams make desperate offers.
Look, I'm all for trading Mitch Trubisky. I'm just not all for starting him even if he wins one game against Miami. I'm just saying whenever Kenny Pickett's available, you go back to him because he's your future. Mitch Trubisky's not. I'm all for trading Trubisky. Definitely. If a good deal comes along, sure. I don't know. I just don't agree with riding the hot hand in Trubisky if he's not your future. Of going for wins now to try to make a playoff
So you're
spot.
de-emphasizing wins. 'Cause
Yes.
You're not guaranteed. So you are.
Yeah, it's not about wins and losses for me this year. It's really not.
Well, so are you if you're trading Mitch, who's winning.
No. Pickett's my quarterback. I have a starting quarterback.
But
I
you're
still
not
win.
starting him.
But
Because
you
the other
would if
guys-
you. But again, I think you also have to be mindful of the future. If you get something ridiculous offer that somebody gets desperate and gives you, you wouldn't consider it, even if Trubisky's starting and playing well.
I would. I just don't think it follows your logic of playing the hot hand and winning 3 games in a row and
Well,
rising to first
The
place.
reason
maybe
the stock
in
would
the
be high
division.
and you'd get a big offer is because he's playing very well. That's the whole point.
It'd be
The
a bold.
stock rising.
It would be a bold move. I would say that it would be a bold move,
Well,
and maybe who knows?
They've made
maybe
some
a
bold
good
moves,
move.
more so than I've seen in the past. Trading
What's
a
it
number
added
1
up
pick.
to?
Okay.
Anything?
No. I'm sorry I brought that up.
Bob, it was
I'm
a great
glad
question.
you brought it up, Bob. It was a great question.